Gray, green, turquoise, pink, and even gold. What's with all these hydrogen colors? These labels tell a story about production methods, carbon emissions, costs, and opportunity. But let's think about this. If someone handed you a hydrogen project and said, "It's green," would you know how clean it really is? That's where hydrogen certification comes in. In today's market, colored labels are not enough. Key industry stakeholders such as investors and policymakers need carbon information, certification clarity, and real-world context. In this episode of Hydrogen A to Z series, we are diving into what the hydrogen colors really mean, how much they cost, and why the future lies in certification and not just colors. Let's get right into it. The color system was created as a quick way to communicate the production methods and environmental impact of hydrogen. But it's not standardized and it's increasingly being questioned. Still, understanding the colors gives us a good starting point. So, let's break them down. We'll start off with the most common and most carbon-heavy, gray hydrogen. It is made by reacting methane in natural gas with steam, but with zero carbon capture. So you get the hydrogen, but you also get a lot of CO2, about 9 to 12 kilograms of CO2 for every kilogram of hydrogen. It's cheap, around 1 to 2 euros per kilo, and still dominates global production. But with the carbon regulations tightening, its days are numbered. You'll see it in places like BASF's German plant or US Gulf Coast refineries. Now, let's go darker, literally. Black and brown hydrogen are produced using coal gasification methods. Black hydrogen from bituminous coal and brown hydrogen from lignite. In terms of carbon emissions, it's even worse with the highest numbers, up to 20 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen, and this is not exactly climate friendly. Some legacy projects still exist. Australia had a pilot project and it's still relied on heavily in places like China and India. Looking into the future, it appears that coal-based hydrogen is on its way out. Next, we talk about blue hydrogen. Blue hydrogen is basically gray hydrogen with carbon capture and storage. You take the same natural gas process and bolt on some CCS into it. It's cleaner, but not squeaky clean. Emissions range from 2 to 4 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen, and that depends on how efficient the carbon capture and storage process is and how much methane leaks along the way. It costs around 1.5 to 3 euros per kg of hydrogen. You'll see the international energy companies backing this, like Equinor's 600 megawatt Salt End project in the UK or Air Products' $1.6 billion facility in Canada. It's being pitched as an energy transition solution, especially in countries that are already gas-rich. Now, let's go green. Green hydrogen is made by splitting water using electrolyzers powered by renewable electricity like wind or solar. It's nearly carbon-free if the power source is clean. It's more expensive today, between 3 to 7 euros per kilogram, but costs are falling quickly. In fact, in sunny or windy regions, it is projected to drop to below 2 euros per kilogram in the nearest future using these renewable electricity sources. There are massive projects, like for example, the 4 gigawatt NEOM project in Saudi Arabia, Hydrogen City in Texas using solar and wind power sources, Green Energy Oman, and even Shell's Rhineland facility has a 10 megawatt green electrolyzer running on renewable power. A common concern you hear about is water use, but it's manageable. Even at the full global scale by 2050, we will use less than a third of what the fossil fuel industry uses today. Turquoise hydrogen. This is produced via methane pyrolysis, that is breaking it into hydrogen and solid carbon. If you use renewable energy for the process, the emissions are low and the carbon comes out as a solid that can be sold as graphene. It costs between $2.5 to $4.5 per kilogram of hydrogen. It's still early days. We have startups like Hyrock in the UK, Monolith in the US, and Levidian that are leading the charge. The bonus is that the solid carbon can be used as graphene, which is a high-value material in tech and construction. Pink hydrogen. Pink hydrogen is basically green hydrogen powered specifically by nuclear energy. The carbon intensity is low as long as the nuclear power is constant and clean. France and the UK are exploring this route with EDF and Sizewell C, and South Korea just launched its first 10 megawatt nuclear powered electrolyzer project with Samsung and Nel. It's reliable and great for constant hydrogen production, but of course, public opinion on nuclear power is still quite complicated. Yellow hydrogen. Yellow hydrogen is just green hydrogen that is specifically made using electricity from solar sources. And finally, we have white or gold hydrogen. This is the wild card. It is naturally occurring underground hydrogen gas, like oil and gas, but hydrogen in the ground. If we can extract it responsibly, the emissions are basically zero. There are projects popping up in Mali, Australia, Canada, and the US. Hydroma in Canada is producing hydrogen at 50 cents per kilogram. This could be a real game changer, especially considering how low the emissions are. But we don't have global standards for this yet. The technology is early, and the data on the economically viable reserves and hydrogen purity is sparse, and the regulations are still catching up. So, what's the problem with using colors to describe hydrogen? Well, not all green hydrogen is created equal. One project might use solar power, another might use renewables plus backup grid power that comes from coal, yet both will be called green. That's confusing and dangerous for anyone trying to build a credible decarbonization strategy. Certification is like a birth certificate for hydrogen. It tells you how hydrogen was made, what energy was used, and how much carbon was emitted during the process, from production all the way to delivery. It's already reshaping the market. In the US, if you can prove that your hydrogen has less than 0.45 kilogram equivalent of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen, you can get up to $3 per kilogram in tax credits under the Inflation Reduction Act. That's massive. And countries are rolling out their own standard. For example, in India, green hydrogen must emit less than 2 kilograms CO2 equivalent per kilogram, and UK's low carbon hydrogen standard threshold is 2.4 kilograms CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen. Under the EU CertifHy scheme, guarantees of origin for renewable or low carbon hydrogen have under 4.4 kilograms CO2 per kilogram threshold. There's also the ISO 19870 standard being developed for full value chain emissions. These systems help governments, investors, and buyers compare apples to apples. If you are developing a hydrogen project or funding one, you need certification. It's not just about compliance, it's about giving access to subsidies, to export markets, offtake agreements, and to investor trust. The old rainbow won't cut it anymore. Carbon traceability is the new standard for hydrogen markets. So yes, hydrogen colors are helpful up to a point, but in a $500 billion hydrogen future, what truly matters is carbon intensity, verifiability, and climate impact. We all know that the world is moving beyond colors and focusing on certified life cycle emissions. So, if this gave you clarity, give it a like, share with your fellow energy professionals, and hit subscribe for more strategic insights on the energy transition. And don't miss the next episode, D for hydrogen derivatives, where we unpack methanol, LOHCs, and metal hydrides and how hydrogen will travel across the world.